Have you ever noticed that the more good you try to be, the less people seem to respect you? You offer help, you listen, you bend, you keep your voice down so others feel comfortable. And in return, silence, disregard, sometimes even contempt. There's a moment, maybe you felt it, when you realize that your kindness isn't being seen as virtue. It's being seen as weakness. They interrupt you mid-sentence, as if your words carry no weight. They only reach out when they need something. They step over your boundaries as if you have none. And somehow, despite the ache, you still try to be the good one. You say yes when you're exhausted. You forgive what hasn't been acknowledged. You stay, even when you know you should leave. Why? Because deep down you've been taught that goodness is safety. That if you are kind, they'll love you. If you're selfless, they'll stay. If you're humble enough, patient enough, soft enough, you'll finally be worthy. But the truth? No one respects a person who doesn't respect themselves. And here lies the silent tragedy. You've spent your life trying to be what others approve of. And in that process, you've betrayed yourself. Quietly, daily, invisibly. The world doesn't reward goodness. It rewards clarity, boundaries, presence. And maybe it's time to stop confusing niceness with value. To stop believing that your suffering is proof of your goodness. Because it's not. It is just proof that you were still living under someone else's rules. Let me ask you something. Who benefits from your goodness? And what has it cost you? Imagine this. A figure dressed in white, walking slowly through a forest of wolves. Their steps are gentle, their eyes soft, their arms open, ready to offer help. The wolves don't snarl, they don't charge, they circle, they observe. At first, the figure smiles, believing that purity will be enough, that goodness will be recognized. But the wolves don't respond to virtue. They respond to power. The figure kneels to tend a limping paw, and the first bite comes. Not out of hatred, but instinct. Predators don't negotiate with softness, they test it. And when the wolves realize there is no bite behind the hand, they move closer, faster, hungrier. The figure still refuses to run, because they've been told their whole life that being good is the highest form of protection. But now the white robe is torn. Blood stains its hem, and the forest closes in. This is not just a metaphor. It is how you have been walking through the world, with your hands wide open, offering peace to those who only understand strength. You believed that kindness was a shield, but in a world that feeds on control and advantage, kindness without strength is camouflage, and those who wear it too long forget they have teeth. From a young age, you were taught a dangerous idea, that to be loved, you must be good. Not real, not whole, just good. And so you became that. The helpful one, the polite one, the one who swallows anger and offers a smile instead. You internalized the belief that your value depends on how well you serve others, how well you obey, how little you disrupt. But here's the part no one tells you. The world doesn't reward obedience. It exploits it. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He didn't write for people who wanted to be loved. He wrote for those ready to understand how power truly works. He said, men must be either caressed or annihilated. Because in the real world, half measures mean nothing. You think that being soft will protect you, that being agreeable will make you safe. That if you hurt no one will hurt you. But the opposite is true. In a world governed by silent hierarchies, those who avoid conflict become servants, and those who never say no become tools. You don't notice it at first, because being good is praised. They call you kind, selfless, noble. But slowly, something inside you dies. Not all at once, but piece by piece. Every time you hold back what you really want to say, every time you agree just to be liked, every time you put someone else's comfort above your own truth, that's not morality, that's a self-erasure. The trap is subtle because it's disguised as virtue. You're told to be nice, be humble, be the bigger person. But what you're really being trained to do is this: suppress your instincts, deny your anger, surrender your power. And for what? Temporary peace? Conditional approval? A sense of belonging that vanishes the moment you show who you really are? Here's the truth Machiavelli understood, and most people fear. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. Not because fear is noble, but because power respects boundaries, and love without respect is dependency. You don't have to become cruel, but you do have to stop sacrificing your spine for applause. There is no virtue in being consumed. There is no honor in being useful to everyone but yourself. And there is no respect for those who never resist. Think about the people you admire. Are they constantly explaining themselves? Are they always available? Are they endlessly polite? Or do they walk with a presence that says, "This is who I am. Take it or leave it"? You became good because you were afraid. Afraid to be rejected. Afraid to be alone. Afraid to be seen as selfish. But what you didn't realize is this: the more good you try to be, the more you signal to others that you can be used. And the world, it listens, it watches, it responds. Not to your intentions, but to the energy you project. So the real question is, are you being good or are you being invisible? People don't become chronic pleasers because they want to be. They become pleasers because, at some point in their life, survival depended on it. You learn to read the room, to lower your voice, to soften your presence. You learn that love is conditional, that safety depends on how small you can make yourself. Maybe it started in childhood. A parent who only gave affection when you were quiet. A teacher who punished you for speaking your truth. A world that taught you, over and over, that being real is dangerous, but being good is rewarded. So you began to craft a self, a character, one who smiles, one who helps, one who never asks too much. And the more this mask was praised, the more the real you was pushed underground. Carl Jung called this the persona, the mask we wear to fit into society. He wrote, "The persona is what one is not, but what oneself and others think one is." That's the trap. You believe you are this version of yourself, but deep down, there was someone else, someone angrier, someone wilder, someone who is tired of swallowing truth just to maintain peace. You've become a specialist in pleasing others, but a stranger to yourself. Because every time you say yes when you mean no, you teach your nervous system that your needs don't matter. You reinforce the belief that your worth is tied to being agreeable. And over time, you lose the ability to even feel what you want. Your boundaries blur, your voice trembles, and your life becomes a performance you didn't audition for. Let's be clear. Pleasing isn't kindness, it's strategy, a survival mechanism rooted in fear of abandonment. You're not a bad person for doing it. You were smart, you adapted. But now, you're no longer a child. You no longer need to shrink. Because the truth is brutal, but necessary. If the price of connection is self-erasure, then what you have isn't love, it's quiet self-destruction. And it will never be enough. There comes a moment when the mask slips. Not because you want it to, but because it can't hold the weight anymore. You find yourself in your room, lights off, wondering how it's possible to be surrounded by people and still feel invisible. You've done everything right. You've given your time, your energy, your patience. You've sacrificed your opinions for harmony, your instincts for validation, your discomfort for someone else's ease. And yet, you are still unseen, still unheard, still unloved in the way you ache for. This is the inversion. The moment when your goodness doesn't bring connection, it brings isolation. When the more you give, the more people expect. And the more you bend, the more they believe you have no spine at all. You thought love would be your reward, but instead, you became a utility, not a person, a function. Someone to fix their mess, to absorb their projections, to validate their chaos, to be stable, even when you're falling apart inside. And the worst part? You start to blame yourself. You think, maybe I didn't give enough. Maybe if I'm more patient, they'll see me. Maybe if I just love them a little harder. But they won't, because they were never looking at you in the first place. They were looking at the version of you that was convenient, the soft one, the quiet one, the endlessly understanding one. And now, you're exhausted, not just physically, but soul-tired, because you've been betraying yourself in tiny doses every single day. That's what people don't tell you about being good. It costs you something. And over time, it costs you everything. Your truth, your identity, your voice, your fire. Until one day, you look in the mirror and don't recognize who you've become. Not because you changed, but because you disappeared. The good person died quietly, slowly, under the pressure of constant self-sacrifice. And that pain in your chest, that silent scream, it's not weakness. It's your soul trying to resurrect itself. Niccolò Machiavelli didn't write for the fragile. He wrote for those willing to face reality without illusion. In The Prince, he strips morality from leadership. He doesn't ask, "Is this good?" He asks, "Does this work?" And while people love to paint him as cold, manipulative, even evil, the truth is far more uncomfortable. Machiavelli was honest in a way most people can't bear to be. He saw the world not as it might should be, but as it is. And in that world, he wrote something that shattered the idea of being good. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. This isn't a call to cruelty. It's a warning, because love without respect becomes weakness, and respect without boundaries becomes exploitation. He believed that a ruler, or any human being, must learn to play both light and shadow, to be gentle when it's safe, but ruthless when necessary. And that's what most good people never learn, because they confuse kindness with submission. They believe that being liked is the same as being valued. But Machiavelli knew better. A man who tries to be good all the time is bound to come to ruin. Let that sink in. If your goodness is constant, predictable, automatic, you become controllable. Not respected, not admired, just manageable. Like a tool. And the people around you, consciously or not, will use it. Because goodness without power is like a candle in a storm. Warm, but irrelevant. You were raised to believe that certainty is virtue, that you must choose, be good or bad, light or dark, compassionate or strong. But that dichotomy, it's a trap, because the real power lies in between, in the ability to hold contradiction, to say no and still love, to disappoint and still care, to walk away without guilt. This is what most people fear, not the villain, but the one who is unreadable. The one who doesn't explain themselves. Who helps when they choose and disappears when needed? Who isn't desperate to be seen as good? Because that kind of person can't be manipulated. You've spent your life fearing the loss of your goodness. But let me ask you this. What has it protected you from? Pain? No. You've still been hurt, still been used, still been overlooked. So maybe the answer isn't to be good. Maybe it's to become whole, to welcome the version of you that says no without apology. The one who walks away from chaos. The one who doesn't stay to explain why they're not available to bleed for someone else today. Jung called this the process of shadow integration. I'd rather be whole than good. And wholeness includes rage, silence, distance, displeasure. Things you've been told make you selfish. But in reality, they make you sovereign. Machiavelli understood that to live fully in this world, you must be feared, at least a little. Not out of threat, but because people need to feel the edge of your absence. And when they do, they finally understand. Your presence was never weakness. It was grace, offered, not owed. There comes a moment when you stop asking, do they like me? And start asking, do I respect myself right now? That shift is the beginning of sovereignty. It doesn't start with vengeance. It starts with clarity. You stop showing up for people who wouldn't notice your absence. You stop defending yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You stop offering your time, your softness, your empathy to those who only see them as currency to be spent. And in the space they leave behind, something ancient returns. Your center, not the one built to please, not the one shaped by guilt or need, but the one that was always there, buried beneath the applause you chased. This is not about becoming hard. It's about becoming undeniable. You begin to say no, not to punish others, but to protect your energy. You begin to choose silence, not as retreat, but as strategy. You begin to walk away, not out of fear, but out of self-respect. The sovereign self does not beg. It does not explain. It does not barter for validation. It knows its value, and it moves accordingly. This is the rebirth. Not loud, not dramatic, but sacred. A quiet moment when you realize you no longer need to be good to be free. You only need to be true. It won't be a grand rebellion. No one will notice the moment it happens, but you will. It begins the day you say no, softly but with certainty. The day you don't reply to the message. The day you leave the room instead of defending your worth. The day you choose stillness over explanation. And in that silence, a boundary is drawn. Not out of anger, but from an inner knowing that your time, your energy, your presence are no longer free to anyone who demands them. This is how the self is reclaimed. One refusal at a time. One silent act of self-respect. You won't feel powerful at first. You'll feel strange, even afraid. But then you'll notice something. The world begins to shift. Because for the first time, you did. Picture this, you standing alone, not lonely but undivided. No mask, no performance. Just a presence the world can no longer manipulate. Not because you became cruel, but because you remembered your edge. And now I'll ask you something simple, but dangerous. Who would you become if you stopped needing to be good? Not loved, not liked, but whole. Because maybe the real strength isn't in being seen as virtuous. It's in walking away from every place that needed you to abandon yourself to belong.